We acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Welcome to This Song Is Yours, a podcast where we dive deep into the world of songwriting and music. I'm your host, Simon Fink, and today we've got a real treat for you. Our guests on the podcast are none other than the Loveable lads from Teenage Dads. The beloved indie band hailing from the Mornington Peninsula in Victoria have just released their long-awaited second studio record titled MAJORDOMO. Since their last album, the boys have been on a whirlwind journey, touring the globe, playing multiple international festivals, and even snagging an ARIA award last year for Breakthrough Artist. Before they head back to the US to support Dayglow on his upcoming tour, they're doing a hot lap around Australia with Phoebe Go and Alexia in tow in support of MAJORDOMO. Now, in today's episode, we've got frontman Jordy Finlay on the podcast to chat about all things MAJORDOMO. We dive into the process of writing this record and collaborating with producer Chris Collins. We also discuss how the dads have gone from strength to strength in the last few years and what they credit their success to. And of course, we chat about them hitting the road, playing shows, and the stellar triple bill they're currently taking across this very country. Now, we want to say a massive thank you to Liv for her help with today's episode and remind everyone to grab a copy of MAJORDOMO on vinyl and grab tickets to see Teenage Dads on tour. All the details can be found in today's show notes. While you're there, don't forget to check out our website where you can follow us on our socials and stay up to date with all of our new episodes. Now let's get into it. Here is our conversation with Jordy Finlay from Teenage Dads. Please welcome back to This Song Is Yours, Jordan Finlay from Teenage Dads. Jordan, hello, mate. How you doing?
I'm good, Si. How are you? Always good to be back, man.
Oh, look, thank you very much for coming back. Again, always welcome. We were just saying a second ago that it has been a while between catching up. I think yourself and the three other lads came onto the podcast in 2021 for, I want to say it was Club Echo around that time.
It would have been Club Echo, yeah.
Yeah. Well, look, very glad to have you back. Very glad that we're getting to chat about this incredible new album that you're releasing or have released, MAJORDOMO. It's out right now. Firstly, congrats on the album. How are you guys feeling with the album being out?
Thank you. I describe it as relief because now I don't have to listen to it anymore. It's like you, especially when you're making it and, you get all the vinyl pressings and all that. You listen to this thing like 1,000 times, but we are all really proud of it as well. And I really love a lot of the stuff on there, and I'm just excited that people get to hear it now and not hear us going, guys, make sure you listen to the album. It's awesome. But yeah, that's mad.
Look, I think you've got plenty to be proud about, and also very glad to hear that you kind of use that word. I think that a lot of the time there's something in, what's the word? Not necessarily in media, but, there's a sense of nerves, there's a sense of everything else, but there also should be an immense sense of pride in the work that you've done and the work that you boys have put into this, because it's a great record, and why not also celebrate that aspect of it as well?
Thank you. No, I totally get that, and I find a lot of artists, it's not like an intentional thing, but, can be self-deprecating on themselves, and because it's like a vulnerable thing, and it's really, especially with the way the social landscape works now, it's really easy to compare yourself to other people because you can just jump on TikTok and look up what other people are doing, and it's easy to get in your head and go, oh man, my song doesn't sound like that, I'm not doing that. But I think and something we try to remind ourselves of all the time is, you're not trying to be like everyone else. You're trying to do something a bit different. And yeah, I think for the most part we did that. There's some influences and that on there. You can tell for sure. But yeah, we just it's good to stay true to yourself.
100%. Well, I think that you guys still have very much done that with MAJORDOMO. This record as you said, look, there are some influences that you can kind of tell, but I don't think that there's ever any point across this record where you kind of go, oh, it's just a rip-off of this, or it's just this. You can tell that it's almost like I hate to use this very cliche word, but it's a very like a melting pot of sounds. It's a melting pot of influences that you guys have then made your own.
No, thank you. I get told I sound like Julian Casablancas a lot, which it's like, I don't know. I'm not doing an impression. I'm just singing, and I do really like the Strokes, but yeah. No, I would hope. I think a nightmare for any musician would be if you like turned on a song and then immediately someone goes, "Oh my God, this sounds exactly like this song," and then they play them like back to back. Someone pointed that out actually on. I didn't realize until after it had come out. Speed Racer. There's like a melody in the verse that sounds very, very close to "Teenage Dream" by Katy Perry. Which none of us, producer Chris didn't see it, and none of us were like, Katy Perry wasn't on like the Pinterest board of inspirations or anything. Someone just pointed it out afterwards. I went, oh man, it's great. But again, it's not like we ripped it off or anything.
I don't think I heard the Katy Perry one, but now after this, I'm going to go back and have a listen to the record and see if I can find it now. Yeah,
go check it. Yeah.
A second ago, you just mentioned Chris, who is Chris Collins, I believe, who worked on this record with yourself and the boys. In this record, I want to say sonically, it's still very much a Teenage Dad's record, but production-wise and even some of the other elements, it does just sound a little bit elevated. You guys have really, really pushed yourselves this time around. I know Chris has worked with bands like Royal Otis and Tyne James Organ. What kind of made it right? I guess why was Chris the right choice for MAJORDOMO?
To be honest, like when we started writing with Chris, it was never like, yeah, let's sit down and do an album with him. We were doing this festival in Brisbane a couple of years ago called Big Sound, and he had like a little block out there to just have a writing session with, which we'd never done properly before in a studio because we do it all just at my parents' place in this little shed downstairs. So we thought, yeah, we give it a go. And so we wrote Speed Racer. And then we thought it was a cool thing. So when we went back with Chris and did a couple more songs. We did I Like It and Tale of a Man there and finished off Speed Racer. And then I think, just with we'd wanted to do an album for a bit and said, well, look, we've done these ones with Chris. Like I think it would feel weird to bounce, because I find that sometimes when you listen to albums that have multiple producers or whatever, the consistency in the production can kind of throw you off a little bit. And so we wanted to make sure we could have like something that felt a bit more cohesive, even if a lot of the songs are a bit stylistically a bit different from each other. We just wanted to make sure that there was that element of like the skeleton of the album was there. And I think Chris did an amazing job. He's an awesome, and honestly, he's just a really good hang too, which is a big part of it. I don't want to work with someone I don't like, and Chris is a legend. He and I do the New York Times crosswords every day and message each other to see who's getting like the fastest times and whatever. And blessing to work with that dude.
I absolutely love that. Just out of curiosity, who's currently kind of on the leaderboard? Who's at the top of that leaderboard for the New York Times?
It's different because there's some days where one of us will get it. I mean, the objective in my mind is you want to be like sub 1 minute, and I start feeling bad about myself if I take longer than a minute to do it. I think the quickest. There was one crossword that one of us got 14 seconds and one of us got 15. I can't remember who it was, but that was next level pace.
Look, I absolutely love that. And it's nice that you can kind of have that, I guess, that kind of relationship with a producer, because as you said, you don't want to work with someone who you can't get along with. And I think that for a band working with a producer across a whole record, you want that element of trust. You want a level of camaraderie that they're in it for you, not just for themselves as well.
Absolutely. And you spend a lot of time with each other. And it's like you said, you got to make sure you get it along. It's the same as, why you pick the people who are in the band with you. I think I've been talking about this to a lot of friends and stuff, is I think some people just forget, when you go and see a band, all you see is the band rocking up and playing the gig. You don't see them like rehearsing every week and then touring all the time. And, that show that you might be at might be 2 months into a tour where they've traveled 7 hours in one day and then set up for the gig, do the sound check, go play the gig, and then after the show, go and hang out with people and take photos and all that stuff. And then you got to pack down and then go back to your 1-star hotel infested with mold and whatever, which happened to us quite a bit in the UK. And then, I find that same thing with, with albums. I think some people, it's not like a naive thing, but I think some people sometimes just think that music just like comes out of the ground like a rabbit in the dirt or whatever, and not this, thing that you've got to make. Because, like I said, this festival was 2 years ago, so technically took us as far as like from when it started to when we were out of the studio was over a year. That's a long time to be doing that. And then, like I said, you got all the touring and all this other stuff in between. You want to make sure you're working with people that are awesome. I'm very lucky that all of us are awesome for the most part.
Look, you would not be human if there were some little parts that weren't awesome, but for the most part, glad to hear that that is the case. You guys have been touring overseas quite a bit in the last few years. I think that, again, at the top of the call, or just before we started recording, we were talking about when we last caught up, which was around the release of Club Echo. Since then, plenty of international tours, an ARIA award. Congratulations.
Thank you.
How are you finding, I guess, the ever-growing success of Teenage Dads and how it's kind of going? I think you've got a huge US tour after this Australian one. Yeah, how are you finding it with the star of Teenage Dads rising?
It's cool, man. I don't look at the band any different. Or maybe I do a little bit different from when we first started. Because like when we first started the band, it was like we were doing silly covers and stuff. I think I would have said this on the interview last time, that the first song we did together as a band was the theme song from Law and Order, because no one knew how to sing at that time. And it was like, we'll just do stuff like that. And I still feel like we've got that same mindset, that it's just a fun thing that we're doing. And it's really, really awesome that so many people are invested and want to come to the gigs. But I don't feel like any of it's going in my head or anything. And we're all, working just as hard as we were when we first started. I think, honestly, the only difference, the two differences from now to say like 4 or 5 years ago is that one is that people are actually coming to the gigs now, and two is that we're just doing more gigs. But as far as like how we're feeling about everything, just take it as it comes, day at a time. But it's really exciting, and I'm excited for what we've got on for the rest of the year with Dayglow and some New Year's festivals that we haven't done before at the end of the year, which will be really exciting. And yeah, I'm pumped.
Look, I think it's very, and not simply just saying this because I'm chatting to you, mate, but I think it is very well deserved. You guys do appear to be one of the hardest working Australian bands at the moment. I think that you can actually see not just the fact that you're finding success, but that you guys are, as you said, tour after tour, show after show, kind of putting in the work as well. So I think it is exciting to see that it is, and it's again well deserved for yourselves.
Thank you. I think that's a big part, and due to our manager Michael Chugg, and because he's kind of from the forefront of the Australian music industry. He was there when it all kind of started in the 1970s with Michael Gudinski and a bunch of the other, I like referring to them as the godfathers of Oz music. They're just sitting at the top. But, Chuggy's said to us right from the beginning that just playing as many shows as you can is, it's still the best way to get people to hear your band. Because even like on, TikTok and that's I saw some stat that apparently like 80% of people now who are discovering music will discover it on an external social media app versus like on Spotify through an algorithm or on Apple Music. But even then, like I know for me, I feel like I don't really fall in love with a band until I see them live, and maybe that's like just the gig rat in me or whatever. But I totally think and all of us think this way. It's just obviously not to a point where you burn yourself out, but really important to just play as much as you can. Because honestly, it's good practice for and it's very humbling as well, you know, because we were going first time we went to Europe, you know, we were going from here in Oz. I think the biggest show we'd done at the time was we just opened for Spacey Jane and played at this stadium in Perth to like 15,000 people or something, which was an amazing experience. And then we go to Germany and we were playing in this, I don't even know how to describe it. It was like a warehouse, and there was only like, it'd be under 10 people at that show who all had a good time. And that's the important thing. You got to play every show like you're playing to 10,000, you know, because if people don't want to watch you when there's no one there, they're not going to watch you when people are there either, you know. So I feel like we all work really hard to make sure that the gigs are bad. And like I said, Chuggy and our whole team over at Chug are really supportive of that, and it's really good. And I'm glad that we get to play as much as we do.
Of course. Well, look, I know that there's a lot of excited fans around Australia kind of chomping at the bit to see you guys live on tour. When people are listening to this chat, the tour would have already started, but across the country this month. I want to talk about that in a second. I do very quickly want to be a little bit self-indulgent. I wanted to talk about my favourite track on the record. We were talking about influences before, and this one was like a beautiful mix of 2010s kind of indie pop, indie rock. It was Live Until You Die, which...
hell yeah.
Yeah, a few 2010s festival flashbacks for myself as an older man. But I was wondering if you might be able to share, I guess the inspiration behind that song or where it kind of came from.
Do you know what? I think I had COVID when I wrote that song, and I'm pretty sure because there was a point where, I got COVID at the start of 2022, and I wrote, no, actually, it must have been longer. Maybe it was 2021. I'm trying to think. Nah, it had to have been 2021 because there were songs. I wrote like 4 or 5 songs in this week that I had COVID, and a couple of them ended up on Midnight Driving. There was 3 a.m. from Midnight Driving was in there. But then Moon, Live Until You Die, and there's one I'm missing. I can't think of it. But that were also in that folder. And they just sat there dormant for a bit before we actually got to put them on this album. But Live Till You Die, I'd been listening to a lot of presets at the time. I think I think like the vocal performance kind of reflects that a little bit. And I guess my approach music wise is, I think of those like big indie rock guitar anthems, like what, Two-Door Cinema Club and stuff. But, because I play synth, I'm trying to like think of a catchy way to like get the synth involved in there. And that's honestly, I was listening to some like 90s rap as well that have that kind of like soul line synth in there and things like that. Just because I don't know, I think it's especially in the music that we do, there's I think just the genre in general can get really guitar heavy, and putting synths in there, because I love bands like Devo and Phoenix as well as another band that I love. Both love to utilize like synthesizers and stuff, and so I really wanted to get something like that in there. And then when I'm writing, especially lyrics, I always try to think of things that will really go off in a live setting, especially for people who haven't seen the band before. And normally, and it's like the common theme in teenage dad songs is there might just be this one repeated line that just goes over and over, and then it gets in your head. It's like the Teddy song, there's the Teddy Doesn't Live Here Anymore, and Hey Diego's, all that stuff. It's all there. And kind of tried to do the same thing in the bridge of Live Until You Die. There's that like repeated, I can't even remember what I said. What did I say? Take tonight, bring it to life or something like that. Just this like, seize the day kind of stuff, and it kind of encompasses the whole album as far as like control and, you know, things that you can take control of, things you can't. I think Live Until You Die is very much the idea of looking at you might be doubtful of yourself and doubtful of your ideas, and especially as like an artist kind of thing, it's kind of that from that point of view, and just saying, well, screw it, I'm going to go do my thing. I'm going to go out there and live until I die, you know, and yeah, I think that's kind of, I hope that answers it. I don't know.
It 100% does. I absolutely love that. Yeah. Thank you very much for kind of sharing it, because I feel like even your enthusiasm talking about it, I feel like kind of encapsulates the magic of that song. So I think that is going to be one of many of the tracks that kind of goes off live on this tour that you guys have coming up around Australia. Also, just want to mention, so it's yourselves, it's Phoebe Go, it's Alexia. I think the best triple bill of the year easily.
I could not believe that they both said yes, because it's a nightmare to booking supports, because like you get, I think everyone, you know, people go, oh, there must be heaps of bands that want to play with you, and it's like, yeah, there's definitely bands that ask, but you know, at the same time, artists have bands that they want to do tours with, and we've known Lex for a little while through Chug and stuff, and Phoebe, we saw Phoebe play at St Kilda Fest a couple of years ago, and I know she's managed by Kieran from Spacey, and we were chatting together about getting her on, and yeah, it's going to be mad. I'm really excited. Both amazing artists, and like Lex's new EP is awesome. Phoebe's new album's sick as well. It's such a good. I'm almost kind of nervous picking good supports, because you want your set to be the big one, but I'm worried that they're going to knock us into third place, and they might be tied first. But no, it'll be really awesome.
I don't think that's going to be the case, but I appreciate the thought behind it. I think it's also one of those things that in the, what is the word? It's not the lexicon, it's there's a certain word for it, and I might remember it later, and I'll shoot you a message when I think of what it is. But it's that kind of thing of, I think that this is like a moment in time in terms of that. We're an Adelaide-based podcast, so we'll be heading to the show at the Gov. I don't think we'll see the Teenage Dads play at the Gov again, in terms of, I think it'll be a bigger room for yourself. I think it'll be bigger venues for all three artists. So it's one of those things of a really special moment in time that I think this lineup will be remembered, not only for the night, but I think for the next year or two to come, because it's exciting to kind of see the trajectory of all three bands on the lineup.
Oh, thank you. It's crazy seeing stuff like that. I feel like I saw one. I remember seeing a lineup. It was like Nirvana, Nine Inch Nails, and like maybe Joy Division or something. I can't remember. It was something like in that vein, where it's like you've got three headline acts for like big arena shows doing some gig for like $40. It's crazy. You know, we're definitely not nearly near that. But, you know, it's I get what you're saying, because, yeah, I mean, I would hope that the rooms keep growing and stuff like that, as they have been for us. And, you know, we're really lucky that they have been. But, yeah, like I said, day at a time, and we'll see how it goes.
Look, I very much appreciate the humble nature of yourself, Jordy. I know that these rooms are going to get bigger. It's the excitement across social media from people that we've spoken to, other music journos. I know that there's a lot of excitement around these. Out of curiosity for you, off this new record, is there a track you're kind of looking forward to getting it into the live arena and playing it in front of people?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited because we've been playing Boarding Pass, the opening track. We've been playing that overseas. We like to like throw new songs in to get a bit of a feeler to see if people like it. And Boarding Pass, we were playing it in the US and in the UK and Europe, and like for a song that these people had never heard, the response was awesome. And I think that's what, like I said, it's got that repeated vocal thing in there again. There's the bits like again and again. It's got that stuff in there, and I think it'll be a really cool moment for us to really connect with the audience and to have a good sing along together.
I 100% agree with that. It is a fantastic opening track, by the way. Sometimes I feel like bands miss the mark on certain opening tracks, and this is a great opener for an album. So very much looking forward to seeing how the album translates live. Jordy, lastly, we usually ask, I guess, what they're currently listening to for yourself. Is there anything on high rotation at the moment?
Yeah, hang on, I made a playlist. I was listening to the band The Linda Lindas.
Mm-hmm.
They're from the US. They had a song go viral on the internet. It was called like Racist, Sexist Boys or something, and I think it was them talking about their experience. I actually think they were in. It must have been like early high school or could be like late elementary school, very, very young. But they've got this song called O. It's just OH exclamation mark. I've been playing like nonstop. It's really awesome. That and Viagra Boys as well. I've been listening to a lot of Viagra Boys. Another very cool band.
Yeah, two very different bands, but kind of love the energy of both of those. Very good recommendations.
Thank you.
Jordy, thank you very much for coming on to the podcast and chatting about Majordomo. The record is out right now. We'll make sure there are links in today's show notes where people can buy the record, buy tickets to see you on tour, both in Australia and in the US. But thank you again for coming on, mate.
Thank you. I hope we can do it again. It's always a pleasure, Si. That was mad. Thanks.